Alright, everybody's aware that Final Fantasy has been massively hyped amongst the Magic the Gathering community. The sealed product, like play boosters and collector boosters, don't release for a few weeks, and yet the pre-sale prices have continued to rise to pretty ludicrous proportions, with some play booster boxes going as high as $200, and collector booster boxes hitting as high as like $700, which is absolutely crazy. Don't even get me started on the precons, which are actually pretty cool and have a lot of new cards, but generally speaking, you can't find them anywhere close to the retail price of $70 unless you pre-ordered them a while back. The good news is, of course, that those will eventually be reprinted. It'll be just the collector boosters that won't. But instead of focusing on all of the FOMO and all of the, crazy hype prices right now, I thought it'd be good to talk about some of the reprints in the Commander decks themselves that are actually really solid reprints. And while you may not be able to find the sealed decks right now, they are going to be opened quite a lot, meaning that the supply, because of how popular this set is likely going to be replenished online for singles. And it's always good to buy singles because you generally end up knowing exactly what you're getting, and if you shop around and find good deals, you can get the best singles there. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at some of the best reprints from the Final Fantasy Commander decks and talk about how you may be able to get some of them very cheap compared to where they were before. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and jump into it. Alright, thank you so much to everybody for being here and taking the time to watch. If you do enjoy the video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Click the bell icon if you want to be notified when new videos are posted. And as always, I do encourage you to comment in the comment section down below. I'd like to see what people think of everything we talk about, and it obviously helps boost with the algorithm and stuff too. So, benefit for me, benefit for you. I appreciate everybody that takes the time to watch. So I want to talk today basically just about some of the reprints in these decks. There are obviously 4 Commander decks coming out, and there are some pretty solid cards that are being reprinted in them, especially comparatively to some other decks. And I think the reason this is mostly interesting is because if you're opting to buy singles of cards and you're not necessarily looking just to get the new cards, there are going to be some pretty good price opportunities to get them. So let's just start off and we'll start talking about them. I kind of have them sorted by color just because that's how Scryfall had the full list of reprints. But we've got Resourceful Defense. This card has actually only been printed once. It was in the new Capenna Commander decks, and it's about $10 at the cheapest before we factor in, this reprint. And it's a pretty good card. Whenever a permanent you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on target permanent you control, and then you can pay 5 to move any number of counters from target permanent you control onto second target permanent. So this obviously works really well with the new sagas and being able to move lore counters around, but in general, anything that can take counters and move them from something else, similar to like the Ozolith, is going to be well liked by those who are building counter-based decks, and this is a pretty good opportunity to get this card cheaper. If it hadn't been reprinted and continued to be popular and see play, it would likely just go up over time, especially being locked in a new Capenna Commander deck that just was not a very well-selling product. So it's a pretty good reprint to see. Now we got Farewell, which is always a solid card. Very annoying card to play against, especially if you play like Artifact or Enchantment decks, but it's generally a card that they reprint in a lot of precons, which I think is good because it helps keep its price somewhat low, but it was at least $5 prior to this reprint, so getting a reprint of it here is definitely not a bad thing, just to make it a bit more accessible. Now, I don't think this version is going to fall below $5 too much because of just the artwork and what it is and all of that, but it's still a card that likely will add more copies of Farewell to the market and should hopefully make the card more accessible than it already is. Bronze Guardian is another one I like a lot, and this one's kind of inexpensive. It was originally printed in Commander 2021, which I think was the Strixhaven decks. And then it was also printed as a list promo, and I think it may have been in one other precon, but it's around $4 at the cheapest, and it's a really good card for artifacts, or artifact creature decks specifically, so I'm pretty happy to see it here, especially with new artwork. Just a good card in general, and one of those ones that, while this isn't like a crazy steal value right now, I do feel like if, as time passed, if it sees more play, it's one of those things that it's good to keep a somewhat fresh supply on the market. Now, Authority of the Consuls, you're probably familiar with if you've ever played against like any stun, white, blue, or just, white, whatever. This is a really good card. It was last reprinted in Foundations. It actually was super affordable for a little while. It was like $2 or $3. Now it's around $7.50, give or take, which is still relatively affordable, but it's good that there's another version of it coming out. It's a good reprint. I don't know where you'll see this in terms of where it falls value-wise. I have to imagine it'll probably settle somewhere around the $5 mark, but being Final Fantasy may end up boosting it a little or putting it near its Foundation's predecessor. But I think at one point you will absolutely see that there will be a chance to grab this pretty cheap, and so I'm glad just to see it here accessibly. And Archmancers Map is another really good card. This was in the Strixhaven Commander decks as well. It did get a reprint in the Ixalan Commander deck, so it's not super recent. I think it was end of 2023, but the cheapest version of it before this reprint's like $9, so it's definitely not a bad, like, you know, opportunity just to get a good card that is solidly playable out there in the hands of more people, I guess, for less money. So this is a card I would keep an eye on. I don't know exactly what it'll look like on release because it is in the decks, but if it's, you know, anything to go based on previous ones, it's very likely that this will end up being affordable, and I would recommend picking it up if you can get it at a good price, because it does tend to, at least so far, has risen over time. But in fairness, you know, it hasn't had a wide scale reprint in an actual product yet, nor is it getting one here, of course, but just, you know, something to keep in mind when you're weighing those financial decisions. Now, we've got Inexorable Tide, and this is a card that was, I think, last reprinted in one of the Fallout decks, if I remember correctly. It's really solid for proliferating, just generally allowing you to do that whenever you cast a spell. And obviously with the advent of Sagas and the Titus Commander deck here too, that are going to be very counter heavy, being able to proliferate is going to be something in demand. I think if this card had not been included in the deck, it would have gone up even more in price, but thankfully it is here. It's around $4 at the cheapest, so we're not talking about anything breaking the bank, but it's still a good reprint, and it's good to see it back on the market. Archi of Depravity, another really solid card, specifically in anything that can make use of demons. It was actually like $4 to $5 before this reprint, so again, not game-shaking by any stretch of the imagination, but good to see a reprint in here that is more than bulk at the very least, and I can imagine that now being in here, this will probably drive its price down a little bit more. Though, I mean, you never really know, right? I mean, obviously, it's a wild card type thing with the Commander decks, but like I said, with the amount of people that'll be buying this product and the fact that these Commander decks will continue to be printed for a while, you will definitely see a mass number of these hit the market. Chalice of Fate, really good card, especially for Dragon decks, and it is around $4 or $5 before the reprint. Just a really solid card that over time historically has gone up after time passes. Never to like crazy numbers unless you're looking at a premium version, but it's just a good reprint and a good card to keep an eye out for if you've been waiting on getting one. Pitiless Plunderer is only $5 now, but for the longest time it was nearly a $20 uncommon, and it has gotten some more prints in different like precons and stuff, and it was a special guest as well. But if you read the card, you understand that it's extremely powerful. It can go infinite in certain combo decks and stuff. It's just one of the best cards that I think token strategies or creature token strategies have access to in Commander, period. And it, generally speaking, will do well for itself every time. So this may be the good opportunity when these decks actually release and the singles go up to actually grab one of these under $5. And hopefully, you know, if it does go up later, you'll at least have been able to get in and grab it there. Reanimate is in here. It's a $9 card. I swear Reanimate gets reprinted in every single deck. However, this card always goes back up. It was last reprinted it was in the Outlaws breaking news frame. It was like $4 or $5 for a while, and at the time I said you guys should definitely buy these if you need one, because they're going to go back up, and they have. They're like 8 to 9 now, and it was even in the recent Tarkir Dragonstorm decks. They're still $6, $7, $8. I mean, Reanimate is a timeless card that just continues to go back to at least where it was with time, and the longer time passes without a reprint, the more it goes back up. So there will be probably an opportunity to grab a cheaper Reanimate than what the market is for a little while, which will be nice if you need one or want to maybe grab an extra copy for another deck or something. It's just, I mean, generally one of the best cards that Black has to offer, period. And it's just extremely good. So just something to keep an eye out for there. And Rise of the Dark Realms is the other one I wanted to mention from Black. It's only about $4 and change. It was last reprinted in Foundation, so there's a pretty good, you know, supply of it, I suppose, on the market. But something to keep an eye out for. You have mass revival like that, it will become more popular with time, and if you get it super cheap, that's actually pretty good. You know, it's definitely got its place in a lot of Reanimator strategies. Hellkite Tyrant is another card that was pretty pricey for a while. It's around $7 now at the cheapest. It did get reprinted in Ravnica Remastered, I believe it was, so that was probably the most recent reprint it's had. Just a really good card that, generally speaking, will always find its way into certain decks. It can be both a funny win condition, but also just a powerful way to just like take all your opponent's artifacts. I think you'll again see an opportunity to get this pretty cheap. And if you're maybe looking to upgrade a recent dragon deck you've built from Tarkir that doesn't have this, you know, good chance to get it. And it's obviously a really good card. So just, you know, one to keep in mind there. Bane of Progress is another good card. This is 4 and 2 green. And it says, when this creature enters, destroy all artifacts and enchantments, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature for each permanent destroyed this way. Obviously very good in Commander. Doesn't have a crazy amount of reprints either, but it's about $8 at the cheapest, so it's a good inclusion. It's a solid value card that will hopefully, you know, be more affordable, like I said, out of this deck, at least for a little bit. I like to think that because the general public seems to, you know, but with a few exceptions, seems to prefer the Magic version of a card, unless it's like some special art or whatever, versus the Universes Beyond, that this will be a cheaper one. But I still kind of think that with Final Fantasy, it's going to be a little bit of a different story, just because of how popular it is, and how much people may just want anything related to the Final Fantasy stuff. So we'll see if that carries a premium, or if it goes similarly to other, you know, non-premium versions of Universes Beyond products. Hardened Scales, another decent card, very, very good for counter decks. It's not super pricey at around $3, but still a good enough inclusion here. And again, better than bulk, and just one of those cards that over time, if you need it, it'll probably end up rising unless they continue to reprint it, which they should, but, you know, we'll see whether or not that happens. 3 Visits is also in one of the decks. This is the best green ramp card there is, period, in my opinion. It's also very pricey. It's you know, $7, $8 right now, no matter how many times they reprint it. It's been in many Commander decks, and obviously was in Baldur's Gate, and I think it had a special printing in a Monty Python Secret Lair, if I remember correctly. But it's just so good. Anything I build green, this is like an auto include for me, and it's just one of those cards that every single time it gets reprinted goes up. I don't even necessarily think that this is going to hit any type of low. This copy specifically, it'll probably stay right around that 6, 7, but you find it at anything under 5, it's probably worth picking up if you need an extra copy. Ruinous Ultimatum, another good card here. We did just get Ultimatum reprints as special guests in Tarkir, but of course, very hard to pull, not exactly commonly available, so you know, I can't exactly use that as a basis, but this card's around $6. It was also printed in the Fallout Commander deck, so it's got a couple, you know, it's got a Universes Beyond comparable, if you will. This may drive this down pretty significantly, simply because it's just, there are other premium versions now of the card that exist, but it's still a good reprint, and so hopefully you'll have a chance to pick one up cheap. Skull Clamp is in so many decks. It's around $7 at the cheapest. It's another card that's kind of timeless, like Reanimate, where it just goes back up over time, and it's just so good and so generically usable in so many decks. This one has some really cool artwork, and I do think that's going to play in its favor quite a lot. A Genova artwork here. I just think this card is going to be a good pickup. I just don't know how cheap it's actually going to be, because I think the pre-sale prices, and again, pre-sale doesn't mean shit in the long run, but just to get an estimate of where people are looking, pre-sale prices are well over 10 for this version. So I don't know how well it's going to be in terms of actually being an affordable single, but it's still a really good reprint to get in the deck. Anytime we can get another Skull Clamp is good, because it's kind of timeless. It just goes up every single time because of how generically usable it is in so many different decks. We've got Walking Ballista, actually a really good reprint in here, especially with all the counter focus stuff. Around $13 at the cheapest. It has been printed. It was printed in Fallout, but it was like a special frame thing. I forget what they called it, with like the green like screen frame. But again, a really good card. I don't know if it'll make any long-term dent, because again, Walking Ballista is a card that just tends to rise back up over time, but there should be an opportunity to pick it up here at least, you know, a decent value, and it's got some cool artwork, a pretty unique artwork there for this version of that. Also, Sword of the Animist, another really good card, one of the cheaper swords, but still solid. It's about $10 at the cheapest, give or take. It's had a large number of reprints, but still tends to go back up, and we got a lot of equipment stuff that's coming out that's going to be seeing play. Obviously, this will be a good card for that, being able to get some lands when you deal damage. So just, again, not a bad inclusion. Kind of what we're looking at here are just notable reprints, things that you might have a chance to snag pretty inexpensively. And then, of course, the last one I've got here is Professional Facebreaker. This one's only around $5, but just a really strong card in general that tends to, again, rise over time. I think one of the things people don't really realize too much about big reprints of cards that, like, are very widely played, and they worry it's going to kill the value, but it doesn't happen historically. Like, if you look at graphs and charts and stuff, the reprint, like, it comes down briefly and then starts to rise back up over time. With some exceptions, unless it's like a scarcity reprint, but then in that case, your card just had artificial value because it hadn't been printed. Staples, cards that see a ton of play, are generally pretty safe from these reprints, because even if there is a small dip, they do end up going back over time. And if people don't agree with that, I would say that's not even really just my opinion, it's just kind of fact that like the charts work the way they do. Look at Psych Rift, Teferi's Protection, anything else that gets a reprint, Smothering Tithe, you know, there's a period where it's cheap and then it goes right back up over time. So reprints as a whole are a good thing to give people a chance to pick up stuff they maybe didn't have before, but also it's not going to kill the value of your Magic portfolio. So like relax a little bit there. Yeah, so this is it. These are the reprints that I think are the most noteworthy out of here. Obviously, there are a lot of reprints in the decks. If you guys think I missed something, let me know in the comment section down below. And I'm also curious if there's anything you plan on picking up out of what we got here, because there are some, you know, opportunities to get some cheap versions of good cards if you don't mind playing them, you know, with the universes beyond frame. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.